Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Got some interesting rumors to talk about today. Matthew Stafford on the trade block. We've got some rumors about a 3-team trade involving Stafford and Geno. We've also got some more rumors about Myles Garrett and why one NFL insider believes that Myles Garrett could be headed to the Seattle Seahawks. And we're going to talk a little bit about Mike Macdonald, his latest comments about Geno Smith. All that and more right here on Seahawks Now. If you like what you see, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. It really helps the channel out. And without further ado, let's get into it, guys. This is what was going on last night flying around X. Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady had a meeting in Montana. And you're like, cool, but how does that apply to the Seahawks? Well, here's how it applies. The Rams, we've been reported, are shopping Matthew Stafford. Star quarterback, right? Super Bowl winning quarterback, Pro Bowler, potential future Hall of Fame quarterback, Matthew Stafford. He's on the trade block, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get traded. The Rams, there's very mixed reporting about this, actually. Some people are saying the Rams want to bring him back. Other people are saying that the Rams don't want to pay him what he wants to be paid. But they have given him at least permission to look for a trade partner, and he is potentially going to be on the trade block. And he was recently seen in Montana talking to Tom Brady. Apparently, they both have ski houses in the same neighborhood. Now, how do the Seahawks apply? Well, what I've been hearing, and what some people on Twitter have been speculating, and I don't know how accurate this reporting is. It could be very inaccurate. But according to the reports, Seattle, Las Vegas, and the Rams could be potentially in the mix on a 3-team trade. The trade would send Geno Smith to the Raiders. It would send Matthew Stafford to Seattle. Right? And then it would send a draft pick from Las Vegas to the Rams. So essentially, we give up Geno and maybe a draft pick to Vegas. They give their first round draft pick, which I believe is the number 3 pick, to the Rams. And then the Rams give us Matthew Stafford. Sounds like an interesting deal to me. I think the Rams might take it. I don't know if the Raiders would take it. Pete Carroll, obviously, though, is the head coach of the Raiders, and he really likes Geno Smith. He's loved coaching him. I think it's pretty clear if Geno could choose between Pete and Mike, I think he would choose Pete. I think Geno would like to go be reunited with his old head coach, Pete Carroll. I mean, Pete handpicked him to be the Seahawks backup. He groomed him to take over for Russell Wilson. He supported him. He gave him a chance when nobody else would. Those guys have a very strong relationship here. How does it benefit the Rams? Well, they would be getting a really high draft pick for next year's draft to potentially take their quarterback of the future for Sean McVay. Right? So that's obviously beneficial. And then how does it benefit Seattle? I think that's pretty clear. It would be giving the Seahawks an upgrade at quarterback for the short term in Matt Stafford, who I think gives the Seahawks a legitimate chance at winning a Super Bowl. You know, and I've talked about it before on this channel. Teams that win Super Bowls are proactive about getting the right quarterback. The Bucs had Jameis Winston, a good quarterback, and replaced him with Brady, a great one. They went out and signed Brady. The Chiefs had Alex Smith, a Pro Bowl quarterback. That didn't stop them from drafting Mahomes and replacing Alex Smith with a better quarterback. They had good, they elevated to elite. The Rams, Jared Goff got them to a Super Bowl, but they replaced him. They traded him for Stafford. Again, they upgraded from good to great. The Bengals had Andy Dalton. Basically, they won 8 games a year. He was fine. He made a couple Pro Bowls. They upgraded in the draft to Joe Burrow. They could have stuck with their franchise guy, but they didn't. They didn't want complacency. The Eagles had Carson Wentz. They drafted Jalen Hurts anyways. They upgraded from good to great. And the 49ers had Jimmy Garoppolo. They drafted 2 guys in the same draft, Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Trey didn't turn out to be very good, but Brock did. They upgraded from good to great. All the teams recently that have been in Super Bowls upgraded at quarterback, even though they already had good ones. They upgraded to great. That's what you need to do. Look at the Ravens. They didn't win any Super Bowls. They had Joe Flacco, good quarterback, made Pro Bowls, won playoff games. They drafted Lamar anyways. They didn't worry about honoring Flacco's commitment to the team. They saw that he was starting to decline, starting to get older. They drafted Lamar, and they improved. They upgraded. That's what you have to do in this league. You have to upgrade. So, Geno, good. Matthew Stafford, great. So, yeah, I'd be down for this 3-team trade. But let's continue talking about other ways the Seahawks can upgrade. One NFL insider is predicting Myles Garrett could come to Seattle. Very interesting rumors here. The Browns are insisting that they're not going to trade Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett, obviously one of the best defensive players in the league, one of the best edges in the league. He's up there with Nick Bosa. He's up there with TJ Watt as one of the biggest game-changing defenders in the league. And he doesn't want to play for the Browns anymore. He says, I'm done, I'm out. The Browns are saying, no, we don't want to trade you. But according to Mike Duger, Athletic Insider reporter, he says John Schneider could end up in the mix. He says if he wants to be a buyer this offseason, Seattle could use help on the offensive line and at quarterback. Schneider prides himself on being in every deal. And for now, the Browns are supposedly uninterested in trading all-pro pass rusher Myles Garrett. But if he becomes available, would Seattle get in on the action? And he believes that they would get in on the action. Like he said, John Schneider is in on every deal. That doesn't mean he makes every trade, but he's listening. He's having those conversations. And Myles Garrett would change the way the front line works. Uchenna Nwosu, we'll see if he returns. Draymond Jones right now is probably not going to return. So you got Boye Mafe, who's good. And then you got Derek Hall, who should be good, but he hasn't really proven it yet, right? Derek Hall hasn't proven himself yet. So that's pretty weak in terms of where your defensive line is, where your edge rushers are. Now, maybe you end up bringing back Draymond Jones and or Uchenna Nwosu, but you can't count on that because they're not confirmed going to be back yet. And they both potentially are going to need to be cut for the salary cap reasons. So in that case, yeah, Myles Garrett would be a massive upgrade. And he probably would help the development of guys like Mafe and Derek Hall as well. All right, guys, I want to get into one last thing today before we sign off for the day. Mike McDonald wants Geno Smith questions to stop. So just a few minutes after I was talking about this potential 3-team trade, potentially bringing over Matt Stafford and upgrading from Geno, Mike McDonald is saying, I don't want to keep hearing about this. And Mike's been very publicly, I feel like he's been a little bit non-committal on Geno. He's always been making comments that, yeah, I love Geno, and yes, I want Geno to be our quarterback. But then he also makes comments like, he'll say, well, it's not my decision. Or he'll say, well, we'll have to have that conversation when it's time to have that conversation. Which kind of, to me, indicates that I think he does imagine Geno's coming back next year, but I don't think he wants to be super publicly committed to him. So this is probably the biggest public committal we've heard so far. Mike McDonald says, stop asking about Geno Smith. He's on this team. He's going to be our quarterback. I'll tell you what that's not going to do. It's not going to stop me from speculating about any sort of rumors because that's what I do. But what it could do, I have said this, I think the fan base in Seattle, it would be wise for the fans to rally around Geno at least for one more year. Because love him or hate him, you have to acknowledge that outside of Stafford, there is no other quarterback on the market that is better than Geno. You could maybe argue for Sam Darnold, but I think after watching Darnold play with the Jets and the Panthers, I think that last year's version of Sam is not what the next team he goes to is going to get. I think there's a very big chance that last year was an outlier for him, and that his future is going to be much more similar to his Jets days than his Vikings days. That's my guess. And so you're like, well, what about Aaron Rodgers? He's not better than Geno anymore. What about the draft? Yeah, we could draft someone. Chances are you're not going to be able to draft. I really do believe there's only 2 NFL-ready quarterbacks this year in the draft. Maybe 3. So Quinn Ewers maybe is draft ready. Maybe is day one ready. Everybody else is a project. Like I've said, I love Jackson Dart. He's not a day one starter. So if you could draft him, but Geno's still your guy, at least for the beginning of the year. Same goes for Jalen Milroe. He's not a day one starter. Cam Ward is a day one starter, but he's going to probably go number 1 overall to Tennessee. And Shedeur Sanders is a day one starter, and he's being pretty consistently projected to be in the top 10. Quinn Ewers maybe is a day one starter, but he doesn't have the elite potential that Shedeur and Cam Ward have. So if you can't upgrade from Geno in the draft, and you also can't upgrade from him in free agency, and there's only one potential trade guy, and it's Stafford, who's in your own division, it's not realistic to talk about wanting to replace Geno for next year. So as fans, whether you like him or not, the healthy thing for us to do as fans is to rally around Geno Smith. So I do agree with Mike McDonald. Maybe it is time for the Geno questions to stop. Well, guys, with that all being said, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like the video. Comment down below. Do you think that Stafford or Myles Garrett could be legitimate possibilities, or is this just the noise of the NFL offseason? With that all being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. And as always, until next time, go Seahawks.